We so often get into these habits of reflecting not on him, but instead reflecting on who we are. The more helpful thing for the Christian is to meditate on who God is.
We know that anxiety is a sin. How do we cast our anxieties on him, as it says in 1 Peter 5:7? And can we train ourselves to do this in the moment?
The answer to the second question is yes. And how we do that is a Godward perspective that I think many of us fail to have. And we'll say we have it. We'll go to church and we'll talk about how much we love God and how much we love Jesus and love being around his church. But we've been talking about this in James. I mean, true faith is proven in action in the moment. So when it comes to anxiety, and if we're just talking about general maybe nervousness or worry or consternation, it's probably how we would define it biblically. My advice for folks is to meditate on who he is, to meditate on what he has done, meditate on his character, meditate on what he has promised to do, in not only in the world, but in your life as a believer. We so often get into these habits of, especially in seasons of anxiety or worry or despair, reflecting not on him, but instead reflecting on who we are and how we're falling short or how we're not doing what we ought to be doing or what our particular needs are in that moment or what it is that we need from him. But the focus is I and me in that situation. So my counsel to folks is if you're feeling anxious, the last thing I have ever recommended is that somebody go when they're anxious and read a book about anxiety or worry or fear, because what does that mean? They're going to go back to me and my worry and my issues and me, though it's guised under the godly desire to see that sin put off. But you know, it would just be like if somebody was struggling with anger or lust or drunkenness, I wouldn't be saying, go read a book on anger or lust or drunkenness, or just be reminded about how that's a sin. No, I would. That's just going inward. That's a spiritually maybe acceptable form in a lot of churches of looking so far inward. I used the word navel gazing earlier, but it's kind of like navel gazing. It's very mystical. I'm just going to keep looking inward. I'm going to look at my heart and my sin. I'm going to look at my anxiety and my drunkenness and my anger. But what's the focal point? You, right?
So would you even steer believers away from books by Christian authors about anxiety?
No, I'm deprioritizing those books though.
Sure.
Because I'm saying I think what helps most of the time, I know I have to be careful about not overpainting with a very broad brush here, but I think the more helpful thing for the Christian is to meditate on who God is. So, earlier I said you should read a book on systematic theology. This is going to sound very odd, but sometimes that is better for your soul in a season of despair or worry than reading a book about anxiety or despair. Certainly, reading a book about the attributes of God where you've got, Tozer or Pink or whoever next to your open Bible and they're referencing all these verses about who God is and you can see it there for yourself, a very categorized way of studying. That is, I think, it'd be far more profitable than just going back to being reminded that anxiety is sin, drunkenness is sin, anger is sin. So stop sinning versus behold this glorious God and desire with all your heart to want to honor him.
Man, that is so contrary to the world's thinking and even thinking about like clinical psychology. What do they do? They look at your past and what happened to you in your past. Let's uncover that. Let's go deep.
Yeah.
But you are recommending the opposite. You're saying don't look at yourself. Look at the Lord.
Right.